Well, good morning, everyone. I want to first of all say thank you to members of the press and our media here in the state and local community for joining us here this morning here at NET. My name is Ted Carter. I'm the president here at the University of Nebraska System, and I'm proud to be joined by members, leadership from NSRI, and some of our faculty here up on the podium. And we're going to spend a couple minutes to make some very special announcements and then have some time for some questions. First of all, today is a remarkably special day for our university, but not just for our university and the National Strategic Research Institute. It's a special day for the state of Nebraska, for our Department of Defense, and for our nation. Today we're announcing that the University of Nebraska has delivered for our United States Department of Defense warfighters, and we're going to continue to do so well into the future. I am thrilled to share with you that the National Strategic Research Institute, our system-wide institute that conducts exclusive research for our partners at U.S. Strategic Command and the Department of Defense, has received its third major investment. This is a $92 million 5-year contract renewed from the Department of Defense that's going to launch us into a new phase of growth and momentum in performing this incredibly important research, safety, and security for our nation. Now, a lot of you are well aware that NSRI was founded in 2012, making us one of only 14 elite institutions that are underneath the title of a university-affiliated research center. If I were to go through that 14 list, they'd be names that you would all recognize. Places at MIT, Penn State, Georgia Tech Research Institute, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab. There's some of the top programs in the country, and Nebraska is on that list. Now, NSRI's initial $84 million contract started in 2012, and in 2018, NSRI received a contract that was worth $92 million, and through their good work and the high demand signal for their work, they went through that money in about 18 months, which is a remarkable, remarkable statement. As a result, Stratcom and the Department of Defense have given us another vote of confidence with another $92 million contract. All totaled, there's been well over $300 million in research contracts in just the 8 short years since NSRI was established. This is not only a boon to our economy, to our workforce, but to the competitiveness and reputation of our state. The National Strategic Research Institute is one of the great success stories of the University of Nebraska system. This is collaborative work engaging faculty, staff, and students from across our campuses, as well as our partners at U.S. Strategic Command. Now, I'll just make a short moment here to give you a sense of how unique this work is. I mentioned that there are 14 university-affiliated research centers across the country. The other 13 are all associated with other elements of the Department of Defense, but none of them are directly sponsored by a combatant command. We are the only institution that has a direct affiliation with a combatant command, such as U.S. Strategic Command. This has definitely put Nebraska and our faculty on the map in terms of national defense. I would just say that when DoD needs a project done, they call the University of Nebraska and they call NSRI. And through NSRI, we're able to put together the talents and the resources of the University of Nebraska to work in areas that matter to the people of our state, protecting our women and men in uniform and keeping our country safe. This is exactly what Nebraska's public university should be doing. And as someone who wore the cloth of our nation for 38 years, I can tell you that in my now 9th month of being your university president, this is one of the most proud days that I've had to be able to talk about this and what it means for our state and our nation. So I want to just take a moment to thank some of those individuals. First of all, Admiral Chavs Richard and our partners and neighbors at U.S. Strategic Command. We are honored to work hand in glove with U.S. Strategic Command, and we look forward to a continued strong partnership. Our Board of Regents at the University of Nebraska, led by Chairman Jim Pillen, who have believed in the mission and the work of NSRI from the start. Our chancellors, Dr. Ronnie Green, Dr. Jeff Gold, Dr. Doug Christensen, their leadership and collaboration has been critical to our success. The founding executive director of NSRI, General Bob Hinson, who you're going to hear from in just a few minutes, And then our elected leaders, who have been great champions for what we do at NSRI, from our unicameral to Governor Pete Ricketts, across the board, they have been so supportive of what we do, and we thank them for their support. And of course, the real stars, the faculty and staff who have built NSRI literally from the ground up. I'm not sure Nebraskans realize the level of expertise and talent that we have in our own backyard, and that's okay. Sometimes these are the quiet champions for the work that are done, all the way up to the highest level of security. You're going to meet some of these faculty members here in a few minutes. We could line up dozens more to talk about the cutting-edge research that they're doing to help defend the United States and its allies. But let me just take a couple minutes to highlight just some of the top-level work that's being done. We've got physicists who are helping build lasers capable of detecting hidden nuclear materials. UNL chemists are working to develop drugs to protect military personnel from the effects of radiation exposure. We've got UNMC experts that are developing a method to deliver oxygen to soldiers who have suffered traumatic lung injuries, literally saving lives in the battlefield. We are working on vaccines for anthrax and ricin. And when the federal government needs help understanding what's going on in the twisted minds of leaders of ISIS, they turn to the University of Nebraska at Omaha, home to the world's foremost experts in psychology of terrorism. Obviously, I could go on. More recently, of course, we've been engaged to work to protect us against the threats of COVID-19, which you'll hear about shortly. I think the past 6 months have taught us that threats to our safety are complex, ever-changing, and constant. They are biological, they are nuclear, they're chemical and cyber. And yes, as we're taking a focus on nuclear deterrence in the 21st century, it shows that we are dynamic and can deal with these threats that are high and urgent. The University of Nebraska is on the forefront of responding. The benefits of our leadership in this space are far-reaching. When we bring research contracts to Nebraska, we grow our economy and our knowledge base. We grow our national standing. And success begets success. We recruit and retain even more talented faculty, staff, and students. The depth and breadth of our educational experience that we're able to provide our students continues to grow. And every new technology that we develop, every treatment, every breakthrough has the potential to save the life of a warfighter and keep our country just that little bit more safe. It is a great honor and responsibility of the University of Nebraska to perform this work. I want to say again, thank you to Admiral Chaz Richard and his colleagues at U.S. Strategic Command and all the faculty, staff, and students and scholars who have made this work and this day possible. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce the individual who has the daunting task of turning the National Strategic Research Institute from a vision to today's reality. General Bob Hinson, our founding executive director. Now, I've known Bob since he was a 3-star active duty lieutenant general in the United States Air Force. I won't tell you what rank I was, but I was well below his position, and I looked up to him, 10 years ago. He's a retired lieutenant general, as I said, from the U.S. Air Force and a former vice president at Northrop Grumman. He's brought many years of military and private sector experience to NSRI, and he has been exactly the right leader to get us to this level of success today. So, Bob, thank you for your leadership. I'm going to ask you to come up to the podium and say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. You're going to hear a similar theme as President Carter, and it's right that we do that. I'm very pleased to be here this morning representing the men and women of the National Strategic Research Institute and the more than 350 university faculty, researchers, and students who have worked with us and alongside of us as a team in providing not only evolutionary but often revolutionary research and mission solutions for STRATCOM, the Department of Defense, and the other federal agencies that we work with. Most importantly, I'm proud to acknowledge the long-term relationship we have with the University of Nebraska and with U.S. Strategic Command. As President Carter pointed out, 8 years ago, I stood at a similar podium with the university as we accepted the first contract with STRATCOM to tackle their challenges in combating weapons of mass destruction, often referred to as WMD. Now, WMD is made up of chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and explosives. And I might need to add the effects of those things in the environments that incorporate our medical countermeasures work. Over the last 8 years, the leadership at the university and Stratcom have changed, but most significantly, so have the threats and the challenges imposed on the command and the Department of Defense. Demonstrated most visibly by COVID-19 and the pandemic that knows no boundaries nor defenses and can present serious challenges to the mission effectiveness and the readiness across multiple fronts. As one of 14 UARCs, our UARC is sponsored by Stratcom, and it has evolved to respond to the requirements demanded by our sponsors as they take on the enormous responsibilities of protecting our military, first responders, healthcare providers, and many others who meet these challenges head on because they must, and because they are the first line of defense for our national security. We started our first Stratcom-sponsored 5-year contract with specific directions for the command to burn the shoe leather by reaching out across the commands and agencies to address their CWMD mission requirements, develop relationships, and gain trust by doing more than they ask. With hard work and determination of the university faculty, research, students, and our NSRI team, we delivered and established the credentials, completing these multiple tasks on schedule and in many cases exceeding requirements. All total, near $300 million in contract awards, $268 million associated with U.S. Stratcom, and an additional $30 million in contracts outside the Stratcom area of responsibility. As already stated, today's announcement represents the third multi-million-dollar contract issued by U.S. Stratcom and allows us to continue our designated UARC capabilities. It also represents a significant opportunity for the university to continue to expand its deep portfolio of research capabilities and opportunities for new faculty, researchers, and students to become a part of a higher calling in supporting our country's national security requirements. To Admiral Richard and the entire U.S. Stratcom team that supports NSRI and the University of Nebraska, we are grateful for their confidence in us. Just as you have renewed your commitment to the university and NSRI with this award, today we renew our commitment to serve your missions to the highest possible standards. As President Carter pointed out, I served in the military for a number of years, defense industry, and now short-term with the university. I've had the privilege of working with a lot of great leaders, and today is no exception. The University of Nebraska, through President Carter's leadership, Chancellors Green, Gold, and Christensen, Provost Susan Fritz, the Vice Chancellors Bob Wilhelm, Jennifer Larson, Ken Bales, thank you all for your vision for the university and unwavering support of this institute. I also want to acknowledge the University of Nebraska's deep bench of multidisciplinary researchers, scientists, faculty, and students who have delivered innovative research solutions to current and anticipated New World threats. Some of these folks will be talking to you momentarily after my remarks. The state of Nebraska and the university can be proud of being in the headlines of tackling some of the most serious threats and challenges facing this nation. In addition to the faculty here today, I would like to also acknowledge our many NSRI student interns. Ashley McGill is with us today. She is a May 2020 graduate from the political science areas of the University of Lincoln. She is now in law school at UNL. This summer, Ashley interned with NSRI to develop a war game with a U.S. STRATCOM nuclear command and control and deterrence mission focus. She and her team did a great job and learned a lot about the mission of STRATCOM. I hope you get an opportunity to talk with her before you leave today. So thanks, Ashley, for representing the many students that work with us throughout the year. Finally, one of the greatest threats to our country's national security is the lack of workforce development across science, technology, engineering, and math career tracks. As a UARC, one of our major responsibilities is to develop our next generation of scientists and leaders. This is our future. It is key to staying ahead of our threats and international competition. NSRI takes this role very seriously, and I know through these opportunities provided by STRATCOM and the university, we can continue to make a difference. In closing, we are very proud of our partnership with U.S. Strategic Command and their responsibilities to provide strategic deterrence, to prevent great power conflict, and underwrite every military operation around the world. As a UARC, we are a trusted agent of the Department of Defense, truly committed to advancing the research capabilities to stay ahead of the technological challenges we are sure to face in the future. This time I would like to ask Dr. Josh Santarpia to come forward and give his remarks. So thank you very much.
Good morning. I am, as Bob said, I'm Dr. Josh Santarpia. I'm a associate professor of pathology and microbiology at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, but I'm also the research director for chemical and biological programs at the National Strategic Research Institute. So among a lot of folks here, I have a unique perspective of seeing this both from the side of the institute and the side of the university, because I work across both. I would, before I start, like to thank STRATCOM for renewing its interest in the National Strategic Research Institute and keeping us moving, and the university for maintaining its engagement. A university-affiliated research center, which NSRI is, was originally created to allow the Department of Defense to reach into universities to get at technical talent that they didn't have in their own in the military industrial complex. At NSRI, I think we still live that mission very, very well. NSRI's dominant role is to take its folks and help bridge the gap between the university scientists and the Department of Defense. So it gives us a unique opportunity and gives us a competitive edge at the university, because we can access people and operations and get sort of direct access into the kinds of people that we would need to take a technology or operational plans and translate those into immediate use. My role at both the university and NSRI has created several opportunities for me to pursue my own research, which has been in biodefense throughout most of my career, but also to engage people across multiple campuses to build bigger programs and do better work for the Department of Defense. Just in the last month, we've been able to finalize a new task order with the Defense Threat Reduction Agency to look at developing novel therapeutics and to understand emerging viruses like the novel coronavirus. As I said, biodefense has been most of my research career. Primarily, I study the bacteria and viruses when they're in the air. I've had excellent opportunities over the course of my career to engage directly with operational elements to help them develop technologies that can be put directly into use, to develop building protection systems, to protect critical infrastructure. But dominantly, my role has been, my deep research experience has been with looking at measurement of biological aerosols. We've been able to apply that across a broad spectrum of technologies, everything from moving people with highly infectious diseases and helping the Air Force develop capabilities for that purpose, to monitoring biological aerosols with UAVs, and to develop brand new technologies for making these things happen. One of the biggest benefits in my recent career has been the fact that because I've been working national security and defense for so long, when we had our first real serious pandemic in the last 100 years, we were in a position to actually be ready to respond to that. Not just we were able to help the Air Force develop movement plans and validate systems for moving infected people from here and there, both specialized systems and to help them understand their aircraft so that they could safely move people even in open airframes. But we also had the ability to help characterize the virus itself and how it transmits from person to person. So we were able to immediately take years of work and deep expertise developed by working for the Department of Defense and apply it to a problem of health security that's affecting the entire world, which I think is a great testament to the power of an organization like this and what it can do both in developing these deep expertises and helping to translate that out. And with that, that's all I have to say.
I want to say, first of all, thanks to Bob Hinson for his remarks, and Dr. Santarpia, thank you for your remarks. We're going to now invite Dr. Brittany Duncan, the Assistant Professor for the Department of Computer Science and Engineering at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, to come up and make a couple remarks. And I'll just say, I've seen some of the great work that Dr. Duncan has done, especially with the drone technology, and it's pretty eye-watering. So, Dr. Duncan.
Well, thank you very much for that kind introduction. We think we do cool stuff with drones too. So I'm Dr. Brittany Duncan, and I'm a co-director of the Nebraska Intelligent Mobile Unmanned Systems, or Nimbus Lab, at University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. The Nimbus Lab is directed by 4 faculty members, and we have about 20 graduate students and about 10 undergraduates at any given time within our lab. We focus on developing unmanned aerial systems, or drones, that can reach out and touch the world. So we don't want to fly high and take pictures. We want to come down and touch things to better understand our environment and the world around us. We are currently primary or co-investigators on about $17 million in federal funding, including a large amount through NSRI. I'm here today to thank STRATCOM for being committed partners through helping us identify warfighter needs, helping us to evolve our research in interesting and challenging directions, sometimes more challenging than we had anticipated at the time, and helping us to connect our faculty and partners with practitioners to demonstrate the capabilities of our systems. Through working with NSRI, we're connected with local experts with years of experience who can identify the hard problems across the DoD from a really high-level view. We are also connected with companies who can help us with production and deployment of our work, and these connections are incredibly valuable to demonstrating the work that we are able to produce at UNL and getting connected with people who can actually use it. A new contract for NSRI means there are even more opportunities for the faculty and the students, which is very exciting for the entire University of Nebraska system. The Nimbus Lab has been delighted to have our professors, graduate students, and undergraduate students involved in our project, which has pushed the limits of what aerial robotics can accomplish through the creation of our unmanned aerial system for sensor emplacement, or the Digger drone. We've been excited to produce systems that can be dropped from fast-moving aircraft or launched from underwater assets, in order to deliver sensors to environments which are inaccessible to people. When we began this project, we were unsure how a flying robot could generate enough force to dig into the ground, and now we are able to do so. We've also adapted that idea to create a system that can be transitioned across rotorcraft and fixed-wing technology, while educating 5 undergraduate and 4 undergraduate students on how to build and test these types of systems and deploy them in difficult environments. Our students were able to learn from people with real problems, deploy their robots in difficult environments, interact with diverse experts from both DoD and industry. This partnership and the underlying technologies that we developed in concert with STRATCOM and NSRI has also led to other federal funding where we've been able to transition these systems to work in the rainforest of Costa Rica through funding from the National Science Foundation. Through the partnership of our university system and NSRI, we were able to push the students of Nebraska to work in difficult environments with diverse users and introduce them to companies to innovate for the warfighter. Thank you for this unique opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Duncan. And now I'm going to invite our final professor to come up here, Dr. Paul Davis, who is an associate professor of biology at the University of Nebraska at Omaha.
Well, it's an honor to be with you. Thank you for the invitation, President. I appreciate it. I'm grateful to be able to talk to each of you about my involvement with NSRI. As mentioned, I'm Dr. Paul Davis. I'm a professor of biology at the University of Nebraska at Omaha, and there I teach immunology. My background is infectious diseases, particularly those in developing countries or in third world or tropical areas, where individuals will experience a wide variety of different infections. And today, I want to talk to you not so much about the work that we're doing with NSRI, mainly because that work is sensitive, and so we don't talk that much about it. But what I can tell you is that that work is designed to protect those in uniform, wherever they are across the globe, as an important element of helping protect our nation. Instead, what I thought I'd talk about today was the experiences that are being had by the students at the University of Nebraska that I'm able to work with. Again, I'll extend my appreciation to NSRI as an organization for existing in such a way that allows us at the university to interact with partners at the Department of Defense, mainly through our partnership with U.S. Strategic Command. I oversee a number of students whose lives have been changed because of their exposure to activities that have happened through NSRI. Let me give you an example. One of the first students that I had who worked with an NSRI project or through an NSRI training program studied microbiology as an undergraduate. And then she went on and was accepted to do a PhD at one of the Army's top flight infectious disease laboratories. While she was working on her PhD, she became enamored with the potential threats that might come from bats, particularly viral infections that might come from bats. Her career has now been made as she essentially predicted that mankind faced the potential for a viral pandemic that might come from a bat or other similar organism. This individual, when she was at university, didn't know exactly whether she was going to finish a degree and whether a university degree would be meaningful for her. As she experienced an internship with NSRI, was able to go and see the work of other scientists and the needs of our nation, it energized her and helped her focus on what she wanted to do for her career. And now she's living that dream. Another opportunity that a number of our students had was to go to a conference that was organized by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency. There, the students interacted with thought leaders and others who were shaping how we were going to, again, help those in uniform. At one of these meetings, a student of mine presented an idea and suggested that maybe one way to do this would be, a way that he described. And in so doing, he inspired that agency to help fund that idea, which is now being pursued. An idea that he came up with simply by working with thought leaders and hearing the needs of the nation. It's not just students who get to learn more about what's needed as we face the global threats that we see today. It's also opportunities for faculty members like myself who take the experience and the knowledge that we have and apply it as we see and understand a little bit more about what our nation's needs are. As I've watched these students grow in these opportunities, these internships, I've seen them have a spark of what the future can hold. That spark may be that they're going to go on to become consultants for the Department of Defense, or they might be a part of that, an integral part. I've seen others who have come up with ideas that may spark small businesses that will start here in Nebraska, and that will provide opportunities and needs for the Department of Defense for years to come. So in my perspective, when I ask what is the value of NSRI to the university, it's obvious. Our students have world-class experiences. They have the opportunity to see and learn from the leaders who are shaping and have a vision of what's to come. I think it's a great opportunity for our faculty members as well, who can take their years of experience and apply it to problems that are relevant today. And I think ultimately it's great for the state of Nebraska, where we, in close partnership with Stratcom, can grow areas of expertise. We can think about the ideas of small businesses that arise from these students who graduate from these programs and grow that here in Nebraska. I'm grateful for the opportunity to work with NSRI and for the experiences that I've had. Thank you.
Well, if you weren't impressed by some of the talent that we have working on some of the toughest issues that our nation and world are dealing with, I mean, I'm just fired up and inspired just listening to Dr. Santarpia, Duncan, and Davis. Thanks for joining us this morning. We're going to now take some time here to answer some questions from the media and those that are out there, and I'll help moderate that. Obviously, there'll be a level of expertise that I'll pass off to some of our speakers here that could give more detail should those be relevant to the question. So who would like to go first?
Yeah, I guess you talked about going through $92 million over the course of 18 months. Can you just maybe explain how like the increased research activity over that time period and how you're able to kind of reach out in more ways?
So we'll try to make sure that we repeat all the questions because I know there's not so many microphones out there, but Chris Dunker asked a question about $92 million, and we went through it in 18 months when it might have been planned for a lot longer, like closer to a 5-year runway, if you will. And I'm going to give kind of maybe a 30,000-foot level answer to that question, and I'm going to ask Bob to come up and maybe talk to that in a little more detail. You know, when you take a step back and what you heard in terms of the expertise that NSRI brings to the table, I kind of put it into 2 categories. These are thought leaders that are actually out there trying to solve the immediate problems that we have right in front of us. So we can talk about COVID-19 and some of the work that might have been thought through as to, you know, what a global pandemic might look like. Well, it's here and it's real, and we've got people working really hard. They're being asked to do things through Defense Threat Reduction Agency and others to help solve this immediate problem. But also a lot of the work that they've done are things that you don't hear about that are looking to do problem solving in terms of prevention, whether it be in nuclear, biological, chemical, nuclear deterrence, all of these major DoD challenges. That work is being gone on, and that's at a demand signal that comes from our DoD partners, and often that exceeds what the original planned dollar contract values were, which again is a huge vote of confidence for how talented and needed NSRI is. So with that, I'll let Bob come up here. He can probably talk to a lot more detail than that.
Sir, I'm not sure I can talk more than what you did. That's really a great summary. One of the great things about U.S. Stratcom sponsorship is they've allowed us to represent multiple sets of research core competencies. The $92 million contract that this represents and the ones previously that we have nearly maxed out as far as contract work are done through what's called individual task orders. That $92 million ceiling is sort of the cap at what the command and the contracting office has authority to issue. We deal with multiple agencies that have work for us to do across the 5 different core research competencies that we are authorized to engage in. And through that, we engage with multiple sponsors. And as I said we have over the past 8 years, we've dealt with more than 40 different contract sponsors, commands and agencies like the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the Defense Intelligence Agency, other commands. Stratcom has allowed us that flexibility to engage in those areas that have an effect on mission responsibilities that could be part of their whole deterrence equation if you look at the effects of that across the board.
So the speed with which you were able to kind of max out this last contract was the result of more of these contractors coming to you saying, hey, we need you to help us solve a problem, and you're able to assign somebody to help them do that.
In answer to your question, yes, we've had multiple Department of Defense agencies and commands, DITRA being the Defense Threat Reduction Agency as one. It's a major sponsor of a lot of the research that we do through our chemical and biological and our medical countermeasures related kinds of things. I think Dr. Santarpia represented one specific area that he's been involved in. Dr. Davis also involved in the projects that he can't talk about are also part of those commands and agencies that we support. And that's how we've essentially come to max out these different contracts. The contracts vary in scope and in cost. Some are, a few $100,000 all the way up to $10 million in work. And so when you get a number of $10 million contracts in a row, you quickly fill up the basket, if you will, on that ceiling. So it's been a great journey to accomplish that. The most important thing of all of that is the benefit that it provides to the warfighters and first responders and those that are entering into some of these things. And certainly that's the interest of the commands and agencies that are really pushing to bring us on board.
Just stay up there. I was just wondering, even with your track record that you had, how much of it was given that you were going to get extended, or at this day and age, is it tough to get money, to do this kind of research?
It is, I think your question is, in this day and age, is it tough to get money for research involving these kinds of projects? The answer is it depends. It depends on the type of research that we're being asked to do. I think you look at the pandemic and the consequences of that across the board and how it affects multiple agencies and the responsiveness of first responders and military people to actually do their jobs. We find that as being more fruitful currently because of all the influence or all the impacts that's causing us. I think some of the other work that was addressed here as well also feed into all of these requirements, because the threats that Stratcom deals with and our Department of Defense deal with are evolving. They're constantly changing, and the things that our adversaries and others learn about way we respond to a pandemic, or the way we respond to an economic situation, or the way we respond with UAVs or other systems, lead to work that really is trying to stay ahead of that technological advances that our adversaries are pushing all the time. I think the commands like Stratcom are always looking at how they better themselves in the work they do in nuclear deterrence, for instance. That is the end consequence of the worst day in our history. But all the preparations, all the coordination, all the collaboration that Stratcom does across all the combatant commands and all the services to respond to the variety of things that make us vulnerable are things that we get involved in through our Stratcom sponsorship. So the money comes. The money for research and development has not been shut off. And as a matter of fact, I think there's opportunities to even grow that in the future. And I think we are in a good position to take on a lot of those responsibilities going forward.
Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm Becca Costello with NET News. Does this $92 million contract include or come along with any kind of budget commitment from the University of Nebraska? Just thinking of some of the budget cuts that have had to be made recently. Is this fully funded by this contract, or does the university have to provide some funding as well?
So the question is, the $92 million contract for NSRI done through the sponsorship of U.S. Strategic Command, is that either matched or supported by other university dollars to support, or is this a standalone contract? And the answer is it's a standalone. There are no university dollars that are either needed or required to support this very vital work that's being done at NSRI, which again, in a budget-tight year, as we've described, and I've been at this podium over the course of the last few months, I think is vitally important. Now, that said, I will also go back to one of the earlier questions and just kind of put a fine-tuned point to that. You know, when you take a look at our research capabilities, particularly at UNO, UNMC, and UNL, every one of our campuses are up in this last year. So as we worked on things like enrollment, and make sure that we have the right programs with the right dollars and the precious tax dollars that we get from the state of Nebraska, there is a balancing act in all that. And yes, we've had to take a budget cut this year across those campuses that will be enacted over the next 3 years, but our research dollars coming in to support everything from early childhood development to technical agriculture and innovation to cybersecurity to, again, this DoD work has been on the positive and is still increasing. So very excited about what we're able to do on the research side.
President Carter, do you have any experience, with your time in the Navy of working with the UARC? And can you talk, if you have, can you talk about what that was and how it benefited you?
So the question is, do I have any personal experience working with UARCs during my time in the Navy? And as a lot of you know, 38 years in uniform, I spent a lot of time on aircraft carriers and doing tactical aviation flying. I was a naval flight officer flying in platforms like the F-4 Phantom, the F-18 Super Hornet, the F-14 Tomcat for the greater part of my life. But I also, during 6 years of my senior flag career, was in higher education at the Naval War College and at the U.S. Naval Academy. But a lot of the one thing that probably doesn't jump out in my resume is what I did as a carrier captain. I was in charge of the USS Carl Vinson, and I was in command of that ship during the 25-year point of its 50-year lifespan. And my job on that ship was to do a full reconstruction of the ship that was about a $2 billion contract to be done over 4 years, and this was to give it its second half of life. A huge part of that job was to take apart the 2 nuclear reactors and rebuild them. Much of that work done with naval reactors is also done in affiliation with other UARCs. So places like Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, Georgia Tech Research Institute, other institutions that are out there doing that detailed work behind the scenes so that we can be smarter and more efficient at how we do that. Interestingly, Carl Vinson was the first of the first 3 ships that went through that process that was delivered on time and under budget. And I would tell you that great credit to the shipyard workers that did that project, the Navy sailors that helped put that ship back together as she went out on 3 back-to-back deployments, one of which was a deployment that actually buried bin Laden. So, I mean, this is real-world application based on science and research that's often done behind the scenes without a lot of fanfare by our UARC. So to be one of those 14 UARCs has real-world application and solves problems before they become bigger problems.
I guess, President, looking forward, now how much does this help or signal possibly the success of UNMC getting the next project, as well?
So the question is, how much of does this type of contract signal for the future success of maybe the next project? Is that what the question was? Truthfully, it's hard to say. It's hard to categorize that. I think what we can say is this is a huge vote of confidence from the Secretary of Defense through all of our partners within DoD and, of course, our collaboration with U.S. Strategic Command. It just shows that big things have been and will continue to happen here at Nebraska, and particularly at the University of Nebraska. So I have nothing but high confidence. Our stock is terrifically high. Our chancellors do great work across the board. And again, this is collaborative. So even though NSRI is one of our particular institutes dedicated to research, this work goes across our faculty of staff. And again, as you heard here this morning, many of our great students who are the beneficiary of that and turn these ideas into future work.
I have a question for Dr. Santarpia. You talked about earlier some of the work that you did with the Air Force and bringing, folks back with infectious diseases. I presume you were talking about the coronavirus kind of earlier this year as people were being brought, repatriated to the United States. Can you discuss any more of kind of the work that you did with that and how NSRI was involved?
Yeah, so it's funny, actually, most of that work actually started back with the Ebola outbreak in 2014. And that it started both with State Department and the Air Force, but I spoke mostly about the Air Force. We had, several years ago, we had helped the Air Force with one of the systems they had for validating, help them validate it for carrying people with infectious diseases, and worked with them very, very closely, hand in hand with folks that were going to be carrying out missions, helping them develop CONOPS, helping them understand the limitations of the system and of their operations inside of it, and really like every detail of how to operate inside of it. And when the pandemic hit this year, I think I was first re-engaged sometime around the beginning of March. They really wanted to understand, were they ready to use it? Were they ready to use that system for this disease? And we spent about 2 days in meetings and discussing it, and they eventually flew a mission. And they've flown, I believe the last count I heard was something like 22 missions in that system with no reported secondary infections. So that's a huge success. In addition, we help them get off the ground new capabilities and help them understand in the limiting, in some of the limiting space where they had to move large amounts of people, what were the best ways to do that? And, because you can't always get a specialized system everywhere that we need to go. Sometimes you're stuck with the airplanes you have. And so helping them understand how those airplanes performed, what the risks were going to be, help them plan their missions.
Josh, you might mention that was the Transportation Command.
Oh, yeah, I should actually mention, yeah. So that was Air Force, Transcom, DARPA, and that was way bigger than me. So that's some of my work, I think, helped motivate much of the work that's happened in the pandemic. But it was a lot of NSRI and other university folks that carried out the extensive testing that's still going on in that space.
Go ahead.
I have a question probably for Director Hinson. Looking at these focus areas of nuclear weapons, enterprise support, threat-based training, et cetera, can you give us a general breakdown of how much of the NSRI's work is comprised in these different areas? Is there sort of one area that takes up a majority of the research focus, or are they evenly spread?
That's a hard question.
I think you're referring to the 5 core competencies that are mentioned in that brochure that you have at your hand, and how much is broken down in each one of those areas. Boy, now that is a complicated question. I will tell you that that a large part of our work and a lot of our funding is coming in the areas of biological response and in some ways the chemical response and the research that's ongoing there. Now, the biological research that Dr. Santarpia just mentioned is just the tip of the iceberg on other things that the various commands and agencies have invested in trying to get solutions to this. There's some other, and I hate to use the word classified, there's some other classified work that we get involved in that we just don't talk about here. The university is one of the very few UARCs that are allowed to conduct classified work across multiple fronts. Now, we get clearances for faculty and students and our own staff that respond to many of these things. I would tell you that some of the, quite a bit of the work that we do support STRATCOM on has involved some of their mission areas. We've presented different concepts and approached STRATCOM on supporting their new facility that they're operating out of today. In the past, we've done some research through the IS&T departments and engineering departments at the university that have collaborated with STRATCOM on some of that work. We've done some other related projects. All total, probably $20 million to STRATCOM, a larger portion to DITRA, but a combination of a distribution across those 40 different sponsors that I mentioned. We find ourselves in the areas of consequence management, and you can understand that in any of these areas of nuclear, biological, chemical, radiological, the question is, what's the effects? What's the distribution of it? How do you control it? How do you prevent military people and first responders from being affected by any of these materials and the like? So a lot of emphasis on those related kinds of things, and I would just characterize that as sort of the breakdown, and it varies on those research core competencies driven by the requirements of the various commands and agencies that deal in those areas.
Okay, we'll take time for one more. Anybody?
And this question is for any of the three researchers. I mean, with all the things that you've gone through this year, how much did the university need an announcement like this?
You might repeat that.
I only heard some of it. Could you say it again?
With the year that you guys have had to endure and all the different types of things that have been thrown at you, how much did you need, an announcement like this?
Well, I'm going to try to, the question was, with the year that we've had, how much and how important it is that we have an announcement like this today. Again, when we just take a step back here, yes, we care greatly about making sure that we're taking care of Nebraskans, our faculty, our staff. That's very important to us. But this is bigger than that. This is really about how the work that's being done at NSRI supports the warfighter. It supports those soldiers, airmen, Marines, our sailors, our Coast Guardsmen. I mean, this is big-time work and has big-time impact. So I would tell you this is a win for DOD, for the work that's being done at our combatant commands like U.S. Strategic Command. And again, we get to tell a little bit of that story about what it means for our workforce here with our faculty, staff, and our students, which is really exciting stuff. And I think that work's going to continue to go on. And I don't know if Bob or any of the others would like to add anything to that.
I'll add from just a smaller single lab kind of view. Throughout all of this, it's been great to continue to work with NSRI and STRATCOM. We've had some exciting ideas we've discussed with them on how we can actually bring our expertise to help with the current problems of today as things have evolved. But one of the most exciting things I think for us and for our students is that even while the world was a little bit uncertain, while we weren't sure what else we could do, our students were still making progress on our project for STRATCOM, working on the digging and placement system and continuing that work. And that was exciting for them, and it was also a touch point for us to continue to interact with them, even when maybe they didn't have classes in person, maybe when they didn't have other things. We were able to continue this work and to keep the students moving in a trajectory, getting experience. One of the interesting things has been seeing our students pivot from completely in person, working in the lab, to being able to structure their work such that they can break it up and work some of it independently, some of it in teams, some of it virtually in teams, which I think we can all agree are really marketable and important experiences for them to get while they're still undergraduates or graduate students here. So I'll hand it back over.
Yeah, so in terms of this contract announcement in contrast to the rest of the year, I can tell you it was a huge relief for me personally. We have, all but filled up our capacity to do more work, as we, sort of all said. It's been a trying year. It's been an incredibly busy year for most of us, trying to respond to emerging needs and everything, and looking at, how much has happened. I will say that, getting this announcement last week was a huge affirmation that everything we're doing is important. It's still important to Stratcom, still important to the Department of Defense, and that they recognize that, we've put everything forward, and that the work's been valuable. So yeah, it was a big deal.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for coming, and thank you for reporting on this really important day for the University of Nebraska and NSRI. Thank you.